Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. All right, team, it's episode 134 of the podcast. Today is February the 8th, 2024. This is the second week of February, so we are moving into the deeper levels of what we're studying throughout the month, and I'll give you a little bit of a preview of where we're going here in just a few minutes. For now, let's talk about the process I've been going through, and let's see if we can't put some pieces together for all of these books. We are working through 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class by Steve Siebold. We're also looking at 9-Figure Mindset by Brandon Dawson and Objections by Jeb Blount. Now, I've been spending a lot of time these days working on sales. Lots of things that I've been really digging into, try to improve my own structure of doing sales. And Objections by Jeb Blount, I'm working on chapter 7 right now. Again, taking these very slowly, taking them, putting the pieces together. The chapter I'm on is The Curse of Rejection, and we'll be dealing with the quote here in a second, but I want to really talk about the rejection factor of sales. It's common. It's going to happen. We have to be willing to recognize that if we're going to do sales. It's not rejection of us, even though it may feel that way. It's rejection of whatever we're presenting for whatever reason. Joe DeSania, he's well known for the Spartan paradox. Essentially, you won't get real until you put a date on something. If you say, I'm going to get into shape, say when you're going to get into shape by. Say how it is that you're going to measure that shape. Put some dates on it. Put some parameters on it. Put some measurements on it, because what gets measured gets managed. And his quote for this week out of chapter 7 goes like this. The way to get through anything mentally painful is to take it a little at a time. The mind can't handle dealing with a massive iceberg of pain in front of it, but it can deal with short nuggets that will come to an end. Now, this works against the principle of eating the frog, which is what a lot of people talk about. Basically, it's not something you want to do. It's not something you like to do. But in the eat the frog scenario, you just take it. Okay? You go for it and you get it done. The problem with that is it's an all or nothing kind of thing. You have to be able to make it all the way through it. And very few people can actually do that. When you're getting rejection after rejection after rejection, you don't see it as a series of endings. You see it as an outcome that just keeps happening over and over and over again. As much as I like to think that I'm a little bit different, I'm the kind of a person that I've got to put parameters on it. I've got to make it so that it works on its own and it works for me. The Objections book helps us kind of put into character. We don't have to take this all in one chunk. Do it for 30 minutes and then be done. Or do it for 15 minutes and be done for 2 hours. Whatever you choose to do, give yourself a very short window that you're going to have to address this. You'll be able to take a series of short windows and deal with them much better than you will a whole bunch of very long windows. Now let's move over into the business strategies section. This month, we're talking about Agile strategy. And I want to kind of cover a little bit about this because I explained it last week, but there are some better ways to look at this. We'll do an example this week of an Agile strategy that fits within your business, and you'll really understand it, I think. But Agile strategy focuses on adaptability and responsiveness to change. It's involving balanced structure, combined with the capacity to pivot or adjust as needed based on new information, such as market conditions, customer feedback. Now, one of the most common parts of your business that falls into the Agile strategy is sales. Okay. Sales prioritizes flexibility, responsiveness, and customer-centric outcomes. The key to sales, to realize this, is that the bulk of sales is involved with sequence chains. That's what we talked about last month. And that's the bulk of what sales does. But when you get to a certain point through the process, so let's say you have a front half and a back half of your sales call that you're going to do. At some point, you're going to need to answer questions. You're going to need to address concerns. You're going to need to put all of this together and do it in a way that makes sense. You're going to start looping, right? This is something that is a common sales tactic, is you get a question about something. It's related to something that you've already talked about. So you have to loop back, talk about that, what it is again, and then move forward and keep going. And you might loop several times to get it all together so that the person understands and agrees where you are in the conversation so they can move forward. That is part of the Agile strategy. It's a flexibility factor. It's something that we have to understand is iterative. You're not going to get it right the first time. So you must put a series of checkpoints and gaps in to allow for that iterative work to circle back. Sometimes you might have to explain something a little differently. Maybe they'll throw a scenario at you and you have to address that scenario. If you're so inflexible that you can't do that, you lose your capability, especially as a subject matter expert, you lose your capability to be able to maintain your status within the call. You're the pro. It's not about the problems of the person that's across from you in the first half, although that will dictate how things move forward. But if you can be flexible and you can be responsive to what this person is handling and do it in a way that makes sense for them, you will be able to move into the back half of your sales call. If you're not, you have a real hard time from here on out because you're going to be dragging that prospect through your sales process. And nobody likes to do that. You're just going to get a whole series of objections that aren't going to make any sense. Another way that sales is an Agile strategy is it's data-driven. You have to have numbers to back up what it is you're dealing with. How many calls did you make? How many of them were hang-ups? How many of them did you leave a voicemail? How many did you actually talk to the person and get the phone slammed in your face? You know, what is it that happened? And you're doing data-driven tactics to tell you. It's a feedback loop. You're creating your own feedback loop, kind of like many of the other types of things we do in business. Agile strategies involve a feedback loop. And they also involve continuous learning. It's not just enough that you're going to learn how something works. It's you're going to learn how to be able to work with it and continue working as things change moving forward. Agile strategies are often hybrids, and sales gets into this category where you move from asking questions to get information to asking questions to set the person in a position where they can start making decisions. It's a hybrid nature, right? The first one is collecting information. The second part is positioning them that there is a decision coming and they're eventually going to have to make it. At the end, your first and only real job as a salesperson, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, your real first and only job is to help that person sitting across from the table from you or on the other end of the phone with you or on the other end of the phone with you or maybe even across that Zoom meeting. Your only job is to help them make the best decision for them, whatever that is, no matter whether it involves you, someone else, or in many cases, doing nothing. And that happens. There are times when you can't really rely on a decision-making position to actually say, I'm going to go do something. I was heavily involved in a negotiation with somebody a while back, and they put up a objection that they didn't have the money. And so we were going back and forth through this. And I said, well, what happens if you got the money from somewhere that you didn't know you had? And if you simply thought about this in a different way, you might ask that person to get the money you need. See, I had done this myself. I had to go to my client and transition them from an hourly business to a fixed fee business, which I wanted to do anyway. And this gave me the impetus to be able to do that. So I took that story and passed it back to the client in my conversation with them and said, this is what I had to do. Is there something you can do that falls along with this? They said, I have about 3 clients. Well, to them it was customers. But they said, I have 3 customers who can't get off the fence. And I need to move at least one of them. And if I can move one of them, I can afford what you need to do. I gave that person 48 hours with a checkpoint in the middle to see where they were. Within 24 hours on my checkpoint, they came right back to me and said, I have the money. Let's move forward. It had become such a good thing for them that they needed to make a decision based upon actual good data. They couldn't just stop it and say, well, I guess I can do this. It's, no, we need to get a solid answer. So I allowed them to do that. They were able to come back and say, yes, I can do this. That's that flexibility. You got to have data sometimes. And remember, it's a continuous learning process. There are going to be things happening to you that teach you how to help somebody else to make the decision they need to make that's best for them. That'll do it for today. Wishing you the best in your health, your wealth, your family, your business, everything about you. Take care. We'll be back next week with a brand new podcast.